Don't light the lantern. He'll see it from the far bank, she said, lips blue as the river wind. Thalia stood by the ferry slip, skirt hem-soaked, a bundled infant under her shawl so close his breath warmed her collar. Dawson Lark didn't ask who he was. He set his wool ranch coat over her shoulders without a word. The coat smelled of juniper and saddle oil. She let her eyes close for one steadying heartbeat. The baby stirred. Dawson brushed the tiny cap. Long way to be out in the cold. Across, she murmured, nodding at the cottonwoods. Family waits there. She drew out a wax-wrapped rectangle, holding it like a passport. Ferry ticket, she said, but it bears another woman's name. Dawson read the water. Low flow, ice on pilings, cable singing. A banked glow moved on the far shore. Why borrow a name? She can't come for her boy, Thalia said. If I travel as myself, he'll be taken before we reach the boat. Who'll try? The mission deputy, she said. He has a badge for taking babies without papers. Dawson looked at her frozen shoes. You chose the river anyway. I chose the name, she answered, until he has his own. Old Hob the ferryman called from the shack. No crossings past moonrise. Ice'll shear you sideways. We're not cattle, Dawson said. Just 2 souls and a small one. Rules don't notice souls, Hob replied. He won't take us, Thalia whispered. He will for me, Dawson said. At first light. He'll come before light. He watches the shore. Then we watch back. They waited where river ice chimed like beads. Dawson said his mother's people lived above the bend. He'd once crossed here on a pine log tied with rawhide. The woman across the river was my friend, Thalia said. She died at the mission. She asked me to carry her son to her mother. That's the name on the ticket. And your name? Mine can wait, she said, drawing the child higher, cheek to brow. Boots scraped behind the shack. A broad-shouldered figure stepped into the river light, Deputy's star glinting like ice. He carried a coil of line and a hook-bright tool. Evening, the deputy said. That ticket belongs to the mission. The child, too. Dawson set himself between the man and the water. You're trespassing on a man's hope, the deputy smiled. Hope doesn't outrank law. Thalia's fingers found the coat throat. Please, she said to Dawson. Don't light the lantern. No light, he answered. Just the river. No ferry till dawn, the deputy said. Hand over the ticket, and you sleep warm in the mission stable. We promised the river first, Dawson said. A plate of ice cracked and skated along the bank. The baby made a sparrow-small sound. He knows we're here, Thalia whispered. Across the water, a shadow rose among the trees. Dawson gauged current round the pilings and felt the night choose a path. If we can't cross, he said quietly, we can still send word. To who? To someone who answers without a lantern. He lifted the cable, weighing distance the way some men measure mercy, and readied himself to pull. The far campfire breathed, dimmed, then brightened, as if someone banked it with a stick. Old Hob muttered in the shack. The deputy flicked his line, testing weight. The tool winked. Last warning, he said. Give me the ticket. Thalia slid the waxed packet deeper under Dawson's coat and met his eyes. If we move, she breathed, we move together. Together, he said, tightening glove on cable. The deputy's boots crunched on the frosted planks as though each step was a verdict already signed, and Thalia felt the infant tense against her chest, as if even a child understood when danger breathed too near. Dawson did not shift his stance, only squared his shoulders so the moonlight caught the plane of his jaw and the gleam of the star on the other man's vest. You've no right to that baby, Dawson said, voice low but clear enough to carry across the still water. The deputy twirled the hook tool idly, the point glinting sharp. Law says orphans belong under church care. Law says women who pretend with tickets not their own are guilty of fraud. Law says you're standing in contempt, rancher. He smiled without warmth. And law bends like iron in my hands. Thalia wanted to answer, to shout that the boy had a grandmother waiting across the river, that blood ran deeper than mission paper, but the words tangled behind her teeth, bound by fear that speaking might make them vanish into the dark. Dawson stepped closer, so near she could smell the iron tang of the deputy's breath, and said, "You can carry law in your mouth, but you can't carry this child away from me tonight." For a heartbeat, the ferry slip seemed to hold its breath. Then the deputy chuckled and leaned against a piling, feigning ease. "You think daylight will save you? At dawn, the ferryman answers to me. My coin is heavier than your talk, and Hob here likes his pockets full." The old ferryman muttered from his shack, unwilling to look at any of them, and the shame of his silence hung heavier than the river fog. Thalia drew the coat tighter around herself and whispered, "He'll bar the boat, Dawson. He'll strand us here until papers vanish and the boy is gone." Dawson looked over his shoulder at her, eyes softened by something more binding than law, then back to the deputy. "If the river won't carry us honest, it'll carry us hidden. I'll find a way." The deputy's smirk faltered, then hardened again. "You always were your mother's son, weren't you, Lark? Half-blood talking like your veins matter? They don't, not to me. You'll find that the river swallows more than it spares." The words struck like stones, but Dawson bore them without flinch. He only said, "The river remembers names longer than men with stars." The infant whimpered, and Thalia rocked him, her own body trembling as though every heartbeat of the child was borrowed time. She dared lift her chin, voice shaking but fierce. "This boy has a name, though you'll never speak it. It's written in breath and bone, not in your ledgers." The deputy took one slow step forward, eyes narrowing. "Then let the river write it down, girl, when it pulls you under." Dawson moved between them, hand resting on the cable line, muscles tight as roped steel. "Not tonight," he said. For a moment, the only sound was the river's slow grinding of ice against the pilings, a language older than courts and badges. The deputy's gaze lingered on the waxed ticket bulging faintly under Dawson's coat. Then he spat on the planks and turned away. "Dawn will prove me right," he said, striding toward the shadows. "I'll be here when it does." His shape dissolved into the cottonwood dark, leaving silence that pressed hard against their ribs. Thalia sagged into Dawson's coat as though the night itself weighed her down, and the ferryman finally muttered, "River breaks more promises than it keeps." Dawson looked at Thalia and the child, then out to the shifting silver of the water. "Then we'll make a promise the river can't break," he said. Yet even as he spoke, he wondered if the current would test every word come morning. Would Thalia trust him long enough to try? And would the river honor the names they carried? Or swallow them whole before light touched its surface? Thalia did not sleep, though Dawson urged her to rest inside the shack where the stove gave off faint warmth. Instead, she stood by the ferry post, rocking the child, staring at the black sheen of the current. Every drift of ice looked like a broken mirror, shards carrying away the memory of someone's face. Dawson came out with 2 tin mugs, steam rising like ghost breath. He handed one to her without a word, and she was grateful for the heat, even if her hands shook too badly to drink. "You'll need strength," he said. She whispered, "Strength won't row a river." He leaned on the railing, scanning the far bank. "No, but strength will hold fast when it tries to take you." He sipped his own, then added, My mother used to tell me the river bargains. It takes what you can't carry, but only if you offer something true. Thalia blinked at him. What could we possibly offer? Dawson touched the edge of his coat where the waxed ticket lay hidden. Maybe more than paper. A soft sound drew their eyes downstream, a lantern bobbing low along the bank. Thalia's grip tightened around the baby. He's circling back. He'll watch all night. Dawson studied the glow, jaw tight. He thinks fear will undo us before dawn, but fear can't row a boat either. The ferryman shuffled out of the shack, pipe clamped between his teeth, muttering, "You stir trouble, that'll drown you. Deputy, don't bluff." Dawson said calmly, "Neither do I." The old man spat into the river. "Your coat won't keep her alive if the current takes her." "Then I'll keep her myself," Dawson said, quiet steel in his tone. Thalia looked at him sharply, words catching in her chest. She had not asked for protection, yet the certainty in his voice steadied something fragile inside her. Still, she whispered, "You can't promise such things. You don't even know me." Dawson's eyes softened, meeting hers. "I know you shivered by the river and still held the child so he would not. That's enough." She turned her face away, but heat rushed through her throat hotter than the tin mug. "What if the river wants more than promises?" she murmured. Dawson lifted his gaze to the sky, where stars burned cold and distant. "Then it can take me," he said simply. Silence held them until the baby stirred, reaching a tiny fist toward Dawson's coat. He let the child grasp his finger. And for the first time, Thalia's breath came easier. Yet even as hope brushed her ribs, dread curled close, whispering that the deputy would not wait idly. Across the water the lantern dimmed, then flared brighter, as if signaling unseen allies. Thalia swallowed. "If he blocks the ferry, how will you carry us?" Dawson's hand fell to the cable line, testing its taut hum. "There's timber stacked by my corral, driftwood from last flood. If Hob won't push the boat, I'll make the river take us another way." "On a log?" she asked, half in disbelief, half in wonder. "On faith," he answered. The ferryman snorted. "Faith sinks faster than pine." Dawson only looked at Thalia. "At first light we move. Until then, keep the boy warm." She pulled the coat closer, breathing the juniper scent, feeling the weight of borrowed safety. Inside her chest, questions beat like wings. Would dawn truly bring crossing, or ruin? And why did the promise of a man she barely knew feel like the only bridge left between her and despair? The river groaned under ice, as if answering in a tongue older than all of them. Would it honor Dawson's vow, or demand its own price when the moment came? The hours dragged like oxen in deep mud, each breath of wind carrying frost sharper than knives. And still Thalia did not let the child slip into the cold. Dawson stayed close, coat spread over both of them, eyes fixed on the opposite bank where the deputy's lantern moved like a patient predator's stare. At times it vanished behind cottonwoods, then flared again, as if reminding them he had not left, only circled. The ferryman had long since retreated into his shack, shutters barred. Muttering of storms and debts owed to men with badges. Dawson ignored him, gaze locked to the river's sheen. "He's waiting for us to grow tired," Dawson said at last, voice like stone ground under a wheel. "At first light, he'll be bold." Thalia shivered, though the coat lay heavy. "Why don't we run inland? Leave the river and slip past him?" Dawson shook his head. "He wants the boy. He'd follow. The only safety is across." Thalia pressed her cheek against the child's hair, inhaling the powder-soft scent. "His grandmother waits there," she said quietly. "She said the old songs would give him strength. They won't let him vanish like the others." Dawson turned his eyes to her, seeing the tears she fought not to shed. You promised a mother you'd finish her path. Thalia nodded, throat tight. I told her the river wouldn't stop me. Then it won't, he answered simply. Yet even as he spoke, ice cracked loud downstream, a sheet splintering, drifting like a blade through water. Thalia stiffened. The current grows faster. Dawson touched the cable line, feeling its vibration, measuring danger as if it were cattle weight. It'll be worse at dawn, he admitted, but a ferry can ride what a man alone can't. And if Hob won't help us? She asked. He will, Dawson said, then lower, or he'll regret not trying. Thalia looked up sharply. You'd force him? No, Dawson replied, but he'll know that if the river takes us, his silence will ride with it. Some debts don't wash away. The lantern across the water bobbed higher, and faint voices drifted more than one this time. Thalia's stomach twisted. He brought others. Dawson's jaw clenched. Then Dawn will bring a crowd. He wants witnesses when he calls it law. The child whimpered, and Thalia rocked him fiercely. He won't take him. He can't. Dawson stepped closer, so near the heat of his body pressed through the coat. Not while I draw breath. His words steadied her, even as fear gnawed her bones. Why risk yourself? She whispered. You don't know me, or this child. He looked at her as if seeing past the question. Because I've watched men with stars strip names from those who couldn't fight back. I won't see it again. Thalia's heart leapt painfully, caught between terror and something she dared not name. She wanted to ask about his mother, about the Lakota blood he had mentioned. But the moment was broken by a sharp crack of brush on the far bank. A lantern swung high, then another, 3 points of light flaring like eyes in the dark. Dawson's hand fell to his belt knife. They mean to take us before dawn. Thalia's breath hitched, clutch tightening on the child. Then what do we do? Dawson's gaze swept the river, the shack, the shadows of piled wood. We move before them. His eyes burned like banked coals. Tonight, not dawn. The river will decide sooner than we planned. The water churned against pilings as if agreeing, and in Thalia's chest a single thought took root. Their choice would either carry them across or swallow them whole. Which fate the river preferred, only the next hour would reveal. The decision came not in words, but in motion. Dawson pulling the ferry cable hard until it sang, his muscles tight as rawhide under strain. Thalia startled at the sudden strength in him, the certainty that carved through fear like an axe through pine. We go now, he said, eyes locked to hers, before he gathers more. She clutched the child closer, pulse hammering. But the boat, Hob won't. Then we don't wait for him. Dawson's voice was calm, but his hand gripped the line with the kind of resolve that didn't leave room for doubt. He led her to the stacked timber by the shack, driftwood from the spring floods. Some pieces were long, heavy, water-worn, smooth. Dawson rolled one with his boot, testing weight. This'll ride if we bind it, he said. The ferryman stumbled out, eyes wide. You'll drown her, Lark. The girl and the babe both. Current's sharp as a knife this side. Dawson's gaze cut to him, hard as flint. Better drowned honest than stolen by your silence. The old man flinched, but did not move to help. Thalia's breath trembled white in the air as she whispered, We can't, Dawson, we'll be swept. Trust me, he said, and in the faint lamplight she saw the shadow of a boy who had once been told the river would take him because of the blood in his veins, yet still he stood unbroken before it. She nodded, though terror clawed her throat. Together they dragged the pine length to the slip, Dawson lashing it with rope stripped from the ferry moorings. He cut the line with his knife, movements swift, practiced. You'll kneel in the center, keep the boy wrapped tight. I'll hold the cable as long as I can, then push us free. The current will take us, but it'll angle toward the far bend." Her hands shook as she lowered to the log. The child pressed against her, his tiny hand gripping her blouse as if he knew. Dawson crouched close, his coat spread over them both. The waxed ticket secure inside. "Don't let go of me no matter what," he murmured. Then, before she could answer, a shout split the night. Across the water, the deputy's voice rang, sharper than the wind. "You'll not steal from the mission. Bring me the child or drown with him." Lanterns swung, and in their glow men's shapes moved closer to the bank, ropes in hand, as if ready to wade or cast hooks. Thalia's heart seized. "They'll see us. They'll drag us back." Dawson's jaw tightened. "Then they'll have to pull the river with us." With one hard heave, he shoved them free, the log pitching forward into the current. Water surged cold up Thalia's skirts, stealing her breath, but Dawson's arm closed around her waist, steadying. The log bucked, spun once, then caught the current and lunged downstream. The men on the far bank shouted, lanterns wheeling madly, but the darkness between them widened with every beat of the water. "Hold fast," Dawson barked, knuckles white on the rough bark. Thalia clung, teeth chattering, the baby pressed tight against her breast. The river hissed under them, and in its roar she thought she heard a voice older than time, weighing their courage like coins on a scale. Dawson bent low, mouth near her ear, words fierce and tender all at once. "This river took my mother's name once. Tonight it gives me a chance to keep yours." Her breath caught, and she dared close her eyes, trusting him as the current hurled them into the black beyond the fairy lights. The river did not carry them gently. It seized them like a wild horse and dragged them forward, spray biting their faces, the log jolting so hard Thalia thought her teeth would shatter. She tightened her arms around the child, feeling his small chest rise in frantic bursts, his cries lost in the roar. Dawson's hand clamped firm at her back, the other gripping the raw rope loop he had knotted to the log. His voice cut through the night like steel. "Lean with me, not against. Keep balance or we're done." She shifted, knees bruising on bark, but her body found the rhythm of his sway, and together they rode the violent heave. Behind them, shouts rose along the bank, lanterns streaking yellow across the dark. A hook whistled through the air, striking water short of them, then another. Dawson glanced back, eyes grim. "He'll try to snag us. Hold tighter." Thalia pressed her cheek to the child's hair, murmuring lullabies she scarcely remembered. Words of comfort she needed as much as he did. An arrow of ice cracked against the log, spinning them broadside. The world tilted. Her scream broke loose as water surged over, freezing, dragging at her skirts. Dawson braced, straining, muscles taut as if holding back the whole river. With a roar, he kicked hard, forcing the log straight. Water spilled off, but Thalia was soaked to her waist, shivering so violently her teeth clicked. "Stay with me," Dawson urged, shifting the coat tighter around her. His eyes caught hers, fierce and steady, and something in his gaze lit a spark through the cold. The current hurled them toward a jagged cluster of ice floes. "We'll split if we hit broad," Dawson shouted. He thrust his weight to the side, dragging her with him, guiding the log's nose. The ice loomed, pale daggers under moonlight, and then, miraculously, the current funneled them through a narrow channel. The floes scraped their flanks, hissing like knives on bone, but the log shot free intact. Thalia's breath tore out in sobs, half terror, half relief. Dawson barked a ragged laugh, though his lips were blue. "River's testing us," he said, voice hoarse. "And," she whispered, "we're still here." He looked forward, scanning the far bend. A faint glow pulsed among the cottonwoods. The campfire she had spoken of, distant but real. Hope kindled sharp in her chest. Yet behind them, the deputy's curses echoed, closer than she expected. Thalia twisted to look. The ferryman's boat was out, pushed by strong arms, lanterns bobbing, 4 men rowing hard with the deputy at the prow. "He's chasing," she gasped, Dawson's jaw set. "Then we outrun him." "On this?" she cried. "On faith," he answered again. And the words struck her heart with painful force, because they were not stubbornness but belief, raw and steady. The baby whimpered. She kissed his brow. "He won't have you," she swore, more to herself than to the child. Dawson reached across, his gloved hand covering hers where it clenched the bark. The contact was brief, burning, but it steadied her. "Not while I breathe," he echoed. The log plunged into a faster chute, water curling white around them. The glow of the campfire grew brighter, but so too did the lanterns behind, bouncing close as oars chopped. Thalia's breath caught, every nerve screaming. The river had spared them the ice, but its bargain was not done. Would it carry them to the far shore, or deliver them back into the deputy's waiting hands before dawn? The log shuddered as it raced the chute, water breaking over its nose, and Dawson bent low, muscles drawn tight, steering with every shift of his weight. Behind them, the ferryboat plowed after, oars slapping like war drums, lanterns throwing cruel halos across the black water. The deputy's voice rose above the roar, a curse and a promise at once. "No river saves thieves. Hand him over and I'll let you crawl out alive." Thalia clutched the child so close she thought her ribs might snap, her heart pounding to the drum of pursuit. She looked at Dawson, saw the wet strands of hair plastered to his brow, the set of his jaw against cold and terror. And in that moment she believed his strength alone could defy the river's will. But still the boat gained, heavier, steadier, cutting the current with practiced strokes. Dawson's gaze darted to the right, to a shadowed curve where the river split into a narrow side channel. "We take the slough," he shouted over the roar. Thalia shook her head, teeth chattering. "It's choked with trees. Better branches than their hooks," he snapped, then softer. "Trust me again." She swallowed hard, nodded once. He shifted his weight, dragging the log toward the cut, and the current caught them like a whip. Branches whipped across their faces, snapping twigs, clawing at her shawl, but the thick canopy swallowed them, hiding them from the lantern glare. The roar of oars dulled, curses fading, replaced by the hiss of brush and the groan of timber. For a moment, only their ragged breathing filled the dark. Then came the crack of wood splitting, one end of the log grinding against a submerged root. The sudden stop hurled Thalia forward. She barely kept her grip on the child. Dawson caught her with his free arm, steadying them both, but the log had jammed, current pressing it hard against the root. "We'll tip," she gasped. Dawson braced, heaving with all his weight. Every tendon straining, and the log tore free with a lurch, spinning them half around before finding current again. They drifted deeper into the slough, slower now, the water calmer, muffled by trees. Silence pressed close, broken only by the baby's weak whimper and the hammer of their hearts. Dawson reached across, pulled the coat tighter over them, his hand brushing her cheek for the briefest moment. "You're frozen," he murmured. She wanted to answer, to say she felt fire wherever his hand had been, but all that came was a shiver. He lifted his gaze, scanning the tangle ahead. "This bend feeds back into the main river," he said. "If we're lucky, we'll come out ahead of them. And if we're not," her voice was barely breath, "then the river chooses, but I'll fight it." For the first time since the night began, she smiled through fear, a broken thing, but real. "You fight for a woman whose true name you don't even know." His eyes met hers in the dim light filtering through branches. Names matter less than choices. Tonight you chose to carry a child not your own. That tells me all I need. The words burned warmer than any fire. She looked down at the baby, then back at Dawson, whispering, "And you chose to cover me without a word. That told me all I needed." His lips parted, some reply forming. But before it could leave him, a sharp creak echoed downstream. Oars again, faint but coming closer. The deputy had not lost them after all. Dawson's hand tightened on the rope lash. "The chase isn't done," he said grimly. "The river's given us cover, but it will demand a price before it lets us go free." Thalia shivered, clutching the child as the sound grew, each stroke carrying their enemy closer through the darkened channel. Would the river give them a lead, or deliver them straight into waiting hands? The slough wound tighter, trees arching overhead like ribs of some vast beast, the moon's light broken into shards across the black surface. Dawson kept the log steady, every sense tuned to the water's pull, while behind them the muffled chop of oars grew clearer, closer, threading through the branches. Thalia bent low over the baby, heart hammering with each creak of wood that announced pursuit. "We can't outrun them forever," she whispered, eyes darting over the tangled banks. Dawson's gaze swept the shadows too, then caught on something pale at the base of a willow. A cairn of stones, half hidden, just visible in the moon-sliced light. His breath stilled. "There," he murmured. "That mark." Thalia blinked, clutching the child tighter. "What mark?" "My mother showed me, years ago," Dawson said, voice hushed as though speaking too loud might wake ghosts. "Her people built markers where the land met water, places the river bends to shelter rather than kill. That cairn is one." The log drifted closer, current tugging toward the willow. Dawson angled it, pulse fierce. Thalia studied the stones, strange and deliberate, stacked with care no flood could unmake. "What does it mean?" she asked. "It means," Dawson said, "the river has not forgotten us." A crash behind, the deputy's boat ramming through branches, men cursing, oars splintering wood. Lantern glow leapt between trunks, chasing them like fire. Thalia froze, but Dawson's grip on the rope tightened. "Hold fast. This is where we choose." He leaned his weight, driving the log toward the cairn. The current shifted strangely, as though drawn inward, wrapping them in a circle of slower water. The lanterns behind wavered, their glow scattering as the main current pulled the ferry boat wide, oars grinding against snags. Shouts erupted, men cursing as the boat spun broadside. "It's drawing us under," one yelled. The deputy barked orders, but the current had taken their strength and twisted it, slamming them against a submerged snag. The lantern tipped, sparks hissing out on black water. Thalia's breath caught. Had the river chosen their side? Dawson's voice was low, reverent. "The cairn marks a pocket current. We'll slip out ahead, hidden by the bend." Thalia stared at him, trembling. "Your mother's people. She left you signs." He met her eyes, raw truth there. "She left me a name. The river speaks it still." For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that admission, the warmth in his gaze despite the freezing night, the sense that something larger than both of them had reached across the dark to shield them. Then the log surged forward, breaking free of the sheltering circle, carried along a narrow cut that curved away from the chaos behind. The men's shouts dimmed, swallowed by trees. The baby stirred, tiny hand clutching the edge of Dawson's coat, as if he too sensed safety. Thalia's eyes burned with tears she could not stop. "You saved us," she whispered. "Not me," Dawson answered. "The river remembered." She shook her head fiercely. "No, you listened." Ahead, the trees began to thin, and through the gap shone a steadier glow, warm, golden, different from the deputy's harsh lanterns. The campfire she had spoken of flickered there, waiting. Thalia's heart surged. "His grandmother," she breathed. Dawson nodded once, his hand firm on the rope. "We'll reach her by dawn." Yet, as the log slid toward open water, a single dread coiled in Thalia's chest. If the deputy freed his boat, would the river's mercy hold long enough to deliver them? Or had it only bought them a moment, a fragile breath before the final trial? The log carried them out of the slough and back into the broad river, the current sweeping faster now, silver with moonlight, broken only by the faint amber glow of the campfire ahead. Thalia clutched the child tighter, her breath caught between hope and dread. Dawson steadied the log, muscles aching from hours of strain, eyes locked on that light. "Not far," he murmured, almost to himself. "Just hold a little longer." For the first time, she let herself believe they might truly reach the far bank, that the promise whispered to a dying mother could be kept. Then a sound knifed across the water, the sharp creak of oars, the hollow boom of wood striking wood. Lanterns flared behind them, 2 this time, maybe 3, and with them the roar of men's voices. The deputy had freed his boat. "No," Thalia gasped, terror shredding her hope. Dawson's jaw tightened, but he did not falter. "The river gave us lead, but he means to take it back." The current surged them closer to the fire-lit bank, and now figures gathered there, dark shapes rising from blankets, the outlines of women and elders lifting torches to the night. One voice carried across the water, low and resonant, speaking in Lakota words Thalia did not know, but Dawson's head bowed at the sound. "They see us," he said. The baby stirred, as if the voice touched him too. Behind, the deputy's shout rose, vicious and cold. "Stop them! The child is mine by law!" A hook hissed through the night, splashing short of the log. Another followed, glinting like a thrown fang. Thalia screamed, ducking low over the infant. Dawson twisted, arm catching her close, coat spread wide around them. "He'll not touch you," he growled. The voices from shore grew louder, stronger, the elders chanting as if raising the very river against its pursuers. The current bucked, swelled high, and one of the deputy's lanterns toppled, hissing into darkness. Men cursed as their boat veered. For a breathless instant, it seemed they might spin broadside again, but the deputy's roar drove them straight. "Closer!" he bellowed. "Drag them out!" Dawson's hand tightened on the rope. He leaned close to Thalia, voice fierce against her ear. "When we near the fire, you take the child and run to them. Don't look back." She lifted her face, eyes burning. "I won't leave you." "You must," he said, raw truth in every word. "If they catch one of us, let it be me. Not you, not him." Her throat ached with protest, but the river surged, flinging spray, carrying them ever closer to the fire-lit bank. The figures on shore moved swiftly now, torches bright, arms outstretched. The chant grew like thunder, rolling through her bones. She clung to Dawson's gaze, desperate, knowing this might be the last moment before the river tore them apart. "If the river takes you," she whispered, "it takes me too." For a heartbeat, his eyes softened, and he touched her cheek with rough, trembling fingers. "Then let it carry us both, but only if it can't be turned." Another hook flew, striking sparks off the log before plunging into dark. The men shouted, the deputy's fury rising like a storm. Ahead, the fire glowed brighter, closer, and voices from the far bank called their names, though Thalia had never spoken hers aloud. She held the child so tight, his tiny breath mingled with hers, and thought, "This is the hour the river chooses. Would it deliver them to waiting arms, or dash them into the deputy's grasp at the last stretch? The answer surged in every wave, rushing toward them with the speed of fate itself. The current flung them toward the fire-lit bank, spray striking like nails against their skin, the log lurching as though the river itself weighed their worth. Thalia clung to the child, heartbeat wild, her lips whispering the promise she had given to a dying woman. He will reach his grandmother. Dawson held the rope lash so tight blood seeped from his knuckles, but his eyes burned with unyielding fire. "Almost there," he rasped. Behind, the deputy's boat thundered closer, oars chopping, men shouting, hooks flashing like silver teeth. "They can't reach shore," the deputy bellowed. "The boy is mine." But from the far bank, voices rose stronger, women chanting, elders calling, their torches casting a golden path across the water. The baby stirred, whimpered, then lifted a thin cry, his fist stretching toward the firelight as if recognizing home. The sound pierced through Thalia, filling her with fierce strength. Dawson caught it too, his jaw set hard. "He calls for them," he said. "The river hears." The deputy's boat surged within reach, a hook whistling past Thalia's shoulder, catching in Dawson's coat. The yank tore him sideways, nearly pitching him into the black. Thalia screamed, clutching him with one arm while the other clung to the child. "Dawson!" His teeth clenched, muscles straining as he fought the pull. With a growl, he seized his knife, slashed the rope, and the hook spun back into the water. The log jolted free, spinning half around. But the current straightened them and drove them faster toward the fire-lit bank. The deputy roared, "No law will save you. I'll drag him from your grave if I must." Dawson turned, eyes fierce, and shouted back across the water, "Law dies in the dark, but blood lives in the light." At that cry, the chant from shore swelled until the very river seemed to tremble. Waves heaved against the deputy's boat, slamming it broadside. Men shouted in panic, lanterns toppling. One man thrown shrieking into the current. The boat lurched, nearly capsizing, and the deputy's curses turned into snarls of fury as he fought to steady it. Dawson bent low to Thalia, voice raw but steady. "Now, when we touch gravel, you run. Don't stop." Her eyes met his, brimming with defiance. "Not without you." "Then with me," he whispered, a vow as much as a command. The log struck the shallows, scraping hard, flinging spray. Dawson leapt into waist-deep water, boots sinking in silt, dragging the log until it grounded. Thalia stumbled after him, the child pressed tight, her skirts heavy, legs shaking. On the bank, women rushed forward, strong arms reaching, voices breaking with joy. One elder woman knelt, torchlight carving the lines of her face, and stretched trembling hands for the baby. Thalia bent, tears streaming, and laid the child into them. The woman's cry rose like a song, names spoken in the old tongue. The baby quieted instantly, curling against her breast as if he had always known. The deputy's boat still fought the current, shouts echoing, but the circle of torchlight on the far bank grew, men and women standing tall, spears lifted. The river surged once more, shoving the boat downstream, carrying curses into the dark. Thalia collapsed onto the gravel, breathless, tears soaking Dawson's coat. He pulled her close, his chest heaving, the scent of juniper and river water around her. "You kept your promise," he said softly. She looked up, lips trembling. "No, we kept it." The baby's cry, the elder's song, the fire's glow, all wove together into a moment no current could erase. Dawson brushed a wet strand of hair from her face, his hand lingering with a tenderness that spoke what words could not. The river had judged, and it had delivered them into the light. Please like, share, and subscribe to support more true-hearted stories on Echoes of the West. If the river had tested your courage that night, would you have stepped onto the log or turned back to the shore?